Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The company Christmas party was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, I found myself standing in the corner of an upscale downtown Atlanta hotel ballroom, watching my wife of 8 years treat me like I was an embarrassing relative she had been forced to bring along. She had been doing it all evening. When her coworkers approached us, she would introduce me with a polite smile that never reached her eyes. "This is my husband," she would say in a tone that sounded almost like an apology. Then she would quickly steer the conversation away from me, talking about work projects and office gossip while I stood there like a piece of furniture. The worst part was watching her colleagues' faces as they sized me up, trying to understand why this successful marketing director seemed ashamed of the man she had married. I'm not some stranger she met at a gas station. I run my own consulting business. I take care of myself. I dress well. But tonight, according to her body language, I might as well have shown up in sweatpants and flip-flops. "Julian, could you get me another wine?" she asked, not even looking at me while she laughed at something one of her colleagues had said. It was not a request. It was a dismissal. I walked to the bar, ordered her usual Chardonnay and a whiskey for myself, and stood there while the bartender made small talk about the weather and holiday traffic. Even he treated me with more casual respect than my own wife had managed all evening. When I returned with her drink, she was deep in conversation with 3 of her colleagues about a client presentation due in January. I stood there holding her wine like a waiter until she finally noticed and took it without a word. "We should probably mingle more," I suggested quietly. She shot me a look cold enough to freeze the room. "I'm mingling with my colleagues about work," she said, her voice dropping in that tight way that meant I had overstepped. The message was clear. I did not belong in her professional world. That is when I noticed her, the woman across the room who had been watching our interaction with unmistakable interest. Tall, confident, mid-30s maybe. The black dress she wore looked like it belonged to someone who knew a boardroom as well as a ballroom. Everything about her presence radiated leadership. She approached our group with the kind of energy that makes conversations pause. "Evening," she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that felt entirely earned. My wife's entire demeanor shifted. Her back straightened. Her tone became smoother and more deferential. "Good evening, Ms. Whitaker," my wife said. "We were just discussing the Henderson account." "Excellent." The woman's eyes moved to me. "And you must be her husband." She extended her hand. "Renee Whitaker," she said, "Regional Director." Her handshake was firm, assured. "I have heard absolutely nothing about you," she added, a glint of curiosity in her eyes, which is fascinating considering how much I hear about everything else in her life. The comment landed like a precision strike. My wife, Candace, went pale. "Well, he is very busy with his own work," she said quickly. "Consulting. Very technical stuff." "Consulting in what field?" Ms. Whitaker asked, still holding my gaze like the question actually mattered. "Business optimization and efficiency systems," I replied. "I help companies streamline operations and reduce overhead costs." Her eyebrows lifted, not theatrically, but with real interest. "Impressive. We could use someone like you." Our quarterly efficiency reports have been disappointing. The look on Candace's face said she felt that sentence like a shard of glass. "I do not think that would be appropriate," Candace cut in. "Mixing personal relationships with work can create conflicts." "Interesting perspective," Ms. Whitaker said, cooler now, especially from someone who just spent 20 minutes describing her personal vacation plans with the Henderson client contact. Another clean hit. "If you will excuse me," she added, "I need to make my rounds, but I hope we can continue this conversation later." She looked at me when she said it. As she walked away, I could feel a shift in the air. Candace's colleagues were looking at her differently, as if they were recalibrating what they thought they knew. "What was that about?" one of them asked. "Nothing," Candace said, but her confidence had slipped. She was just being polite. I did not need to say anything. From the way Candace kept glancing nervously across the room, she knew politeness had not been what that was. 20 minutes later, she drifted toward the dessert table with her group and left me by the windows overlooking the city. I was grateful for the brief break from her embarrassed glances and dismissive comments. I was sipping my whiskey when I heard heels on marble behind me. "Quite a view," Ms. Whitaker said, joining me at the window. Up close, she was even more striking. Sharp features, clear eyes, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having to doubt your own worth. "It is," I said, "though the view inside has been more interesting tonight." She laughed, the sound genuine. Direct. I like that. It is refreshing in a room full of corporate diplomacy. "Speaking of," I said, "that was quite the performance earlier." She raised an eyebrow. "I was simply making observations. Your wife has an interesting philosophy on professional relationships." We stood for a moment in companionable silence, watching the lights of Atlanta stretch toward the horizon. Then her voice went quieter, more focused. "Can I ask you something? And I want a straight answer." "Go ahead. How long has she been treating you like you are invisible?" The question hit harder than I expected. "What makes you think she does?" 20 years in leadership," she said. "You learn to read people. Body language. Tone. Social dynamics. Tonight, I watched a woman systematically diminish her husband in front of her colleagues. The question is whether you are going to keep letting her." I turned to face her. Bold assessment for someone who just met us. "I have not just met her," Ms. Whitaker said. "I have been watching her for months. She talks about everyone in her life except you. Her friends, her yoga instructor, her hairstylist, even her neighbor's dog, but never her husband. That tells me how she values you. And what exactly do you think you know about my marriage?" She moved closer, close enough that I caught a clean note of perfume. "I know you are a successful professional being treated like an accessory. I know you have presence and intelligence most people in this room are trying to fake. And I know your wife is either blind or careless with what she has." It was uncomfortably accurate. "You do not know me," I said, but there was no conviction behind it. "I know enough," she replied. "You run your own business, which means you have drive and independence. You are confident enough to hold your own in rooms like this. And you are loyal enough to stand by someone who is not standing by you." She reached in her clutch and pulled out a card, but instead of handing it to me, she stepped closer. "Loyalty has limits," she said, slipping the card into my jacket pocket. Her fingers lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Some people do not realize what they have until it is gone." "What is that for?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. "Consider it a professional opportunity," she said with a slight smile. "We really could use your expertise. But more than that, consider it an invitation to be valued by someone who recognizes quality when she sees it." The implication was unmistakable. "That is quite an offer." "It is not an offer," she said. "It is a reality check. How you handle the next few minutes will tell me everything." She tilted her head. "Your wife is already on her way over." I looked across the room and saw Candace pushing through the crowd toward us, her face tight with panic. "Showtime," Ms. Whitaker murmured, then raised her voice to a normal level. "So, I will have my assistant send over the efficiency reports we discussed. I think you will find them very interesting." Candace reached us just as Ms. Whitaker finished. "There you are," she said, breathless and brittle. "I was looking for you. Just discussing some potential business," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Candace's eyes widened. "Your husband has some impressive ideas about operational efficiency," Ms. Whitaker said. "We should explore a consulting arrangement." I could practically hear the gears grind in Candace's head as she calculated how to object without looking unprofessional in front of her boss. "We would have to think about that," Candace said carefully. "There might be conflicts of interest." "Really?" Ms. Whitaker asked, polite but sharp. "What kind of conflicts?" "I would think you would be proud to have your husband's expertise recognized by your company." Any objection now would reveal exactly what it was: embarrassment. "Of course I would be proud," Candace said, but her smile looked painful. "We would just need to discuss it." "Naturally," Ms. Whitaker said. "I will leave you to it. Interesting evening." She stepped away, and the three of us knew the dynamic had shifted. It was not in Candace's favor. "What did she want?" Candace asked, trying for casual and missing. I tapped my jacket pocket where the card rested. Like she said, professional opportunities. We both knew it was more than that. After that, Candace barely left my side, breathing down my neck at every conversation. If someone seemed interested in talking with me, she would insert herself like a security guard. People noticed. The embarrassment that had begun with me was now firmly hers. When Ms. Whitaker reappeared near the bar, Candace stiffened. I'm going to get some air, I said, moving toward the outdoor terrace. Wait, Candace said, grabbing my arm. Where are you going? To the terrace, I replied. Unless you need to sign a permission slip. The December air was cool and clean above the Atlanta lights. For a few quiet moments, the tension bled away. Look, Candace said, joining me at the railing. I know tonight has been awkward, but you have to understand my position. These people are my colleagues. I have to maintain a certain image. Apparently that image does not include acknowledging your husband exists. That is not fair, she said. I introduced you to everyone. You introduced me like I was an obligation, I said. Like bringing me here was a risk to be managed. The terrace door opened again. Beautiful night, Ms. Whitaker said, stepping outside as if by chance. A bit cold. You may want to come back in soon. Candace's shoulders tightened. We were just finishing, Candace said. No rush, Ms. Whitaker replied. I wanted to continue our discussion about consulting. I have specific challenges I would like your husband's perspective on. She stepped close enough that anyone watching would notice the proximity. Professional collaboration can be rewarding, she said lightly, when it is with the right person. Candace said nothing, because objecting now would be catastrophic. Ms. Whitaker reached into her clutch and produced a different card. This has my direct line, she said, offering it to me. Just as I reached, the card slipped and fell. We both bent to pick it up. Our hands brushed. The touch was brief, unmistakable. What do you think you are doing? Candace snapped. The words tore out of her. Conversations around us ceased. Ms. Whitaker's expression cooled to ice. I am sorry, she asked, voice level. You know exactly what you are doing, Candace said. The touching. The cards. The comments. I see what is happening. Silence swallowed the terrace. A mid-level manager publicly accusing her regional director of inappropriate behavior at a company event. Ms. Whitaker's tone did not waver. Let me be clear, she said. You are suggesting my interest in your husband's professional services is improper. Candace realized too late she had walked into a trap. That is not what I meant. Because that is a serious accusation, Ms. Whitaker said evenly. The kind that would require a formal investigation. The kind that involves human resources reviewing camera footage to see if your description matches reality. Color drained from Candace's face as she pictured how that footage would look. Her boss maintaining professional boundaries while she had a public meltdown. I think what my wife means, I began, is that no, Ms. Whitaker said, eyes still on Candace. She stated it plainly. She accused me of sexual harassment in front of witnesses. A few guests were already holding their phones up, the modern reflex to corporate drama. Please, Candace said, her voice cracking. I did not mean, you meant it, Ms. Whitaker said. Now we will deal with it appropriately. We should continue this in private. Human resources will want a full report, including statements from everyone here. Can we forget this happened? Candace whispered. Forget that an employee made public accusations of misconduct against senior management. Ms. Whitaker shook her head. That is not how professional environments work. She glanced around. I'm sorry you had to witness this, she said to me. Your wife clearly has some personal issues to address. Then to the crowd. Let us get back to the party. People drifted inside, buzzing. Candace gripped my arm. You have to fix this, she whispered. Talk to her. Explain I was stressed. I looked at her, at the woman who had spent the evening treating me like an inconvenience and had just wrecked her own credibility. Fix what exactly? I asked. You made a public accusation. You could talk to her, she said. She obviously likes you. The irony was breathtaking. An hour ago, you were embarrassed to introduce me, I said. Now you want me to leverage a relationship you try to sabotage. She stared at me and understood something had shifted. Please, she said. I touched the card in my pocket. We will see. The ride home was silent, except for the soft buzz of Candace's phone lighting up with messages. 37 texts, she said dully after 20 minutes. In 20 minutes. That is what happens, I said, when you have a breakdown in front of half your department. You could have backed me up, she whispered. Said what? I asked. That your boss touched me? That would have been a lie. At home, she went straight to her laptop and began typing furiously. I poured a whiskey and watched. What are you writing? I asked. An apology, she said, explaining I was stressed and misunderstood. I set Ms. Whitaker's card on the counter where she could see it. Candace's hands froze on the keys. She gave your direct number, she said quietly. She did. My phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Whitaker asking to set a meeting to discuss the contract. When? Candace asked, her voice tight. Tomorrow afternoon, I said. Her office. You cannot be serious. Why not? It is a legitimate opportunity. Do not pretend this is just business, she said. She is interested in more than your invoices. I sat across from her. And if she is, what gives you the right to object? I'm your wife, she said. Are you? I asked. Because lately it feels like I'm a roommate you are embarrassed by. She stared down at the table. What if I change? She asked. What if I start including you in my world? You mean like you should have been doing for years? She held my eyes. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. Now you want counseling? I asked. After months of making me feel like the problem, I'm not canceling anything. You made your choices last night. I'm making mine. Morning came with the sound of Candace on a call in the kitchen. It was barely 7 when she began apologizing to Human Resources. The conversation lasted 20 minutes and ended with her agreeing to attend a disciplinary meeting that afternoon. When she hung up, she stared at her phone like it might break in her hands. Mandatory sensitivity training, she said. 6 weeks. Formal reprimand. Could have been worse, I said, pouring coffee. Could have been worse, she repeated. My career is over. No one will trust me with important clients. I will be stuck in the middle forever. Actions have consequences, I said. This should not be a surprise. My phone rang. Good morning, Ms. Whitaker said when I answered. I hope this is not too early. I wanted to confirm 2 o'clock today. And about dinner afterward. I know a quiet place. I glanced at Candace watching me. That sounds ideal, I said. I'm looking forward to it. When I hung up, Candace's expression was a mix of fear and anger. You are really going through with this? Going through with what? I asked. A meeting. Do not insult me, she said. You know what I mean. I know it is about respect, I said. Last night somebody treated me like I mattered. That has not happened at home in a long time. She tried one more path. Please cancel the meeting, she said. We can figure this out. I told you, I said. I'm not canceling anything. She left for her disciplinary meeting looking like she was walking into a storm. I spent the late morning reviewing my portfolio and outlining a scope of work. At 1:30, I put on my best suit and drove back into the city. Ms. Whitaker's office sat in a gleaming midtown tower, 30 floors up with a view that made the streets look like a model set. Her assistant showed me in at exactly 2 o'clock. She stood from behind a wide desk, poised in a navy suit that somehow looked both severe and inviting. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to a sitting area away from the desk. Coffee? Water? Coffee is fine, I said. She poured from an immaculate machine and handed me a cup before settling across from me. Before we discuss business, she said, I want to address what happened last night. She did not flinch. Your wife's behavior will be handled through the proper process. Whatever happens between us, business or otherwise, has no bearing on that. Her consequences are her own. I appreciate the clarification, I said. Good, she replied. Now, about your consulting services. We spent an hour talking through real problems, duplicated processes across teams, unclear handoffs, software adoption failures, the drag of bad reporting. She listened with focus and challenged soft answers. The outline she proposed was substantial. A 6-month engagement, clear deliverables, authority to implement, compensation that would push my income well above my best year. Beneath all of it, something else hovered, subtle, warm, and deliberate. It was in the way she watched me when I diagrammed a process on a legal pad, the way she leaned in when we reviewed a sample dashboard, the brief touch of her hand when she passed me a document. When we finished, she set down her cup and met my eyes. I want to be transparent, she said. I'm attracted to you. I was last night, and I am now. You are intelligent, confident, and underappreciated. I want you to take this contract because you are the right person for the job. I also want you to understand that my interest goes beyond a statement of work. The directness landed like oxygen after months of passive-aggressive remarks at home. That is quite an admission, I said. I do not have time for games, she replied. She walked to the window and looked out over Atlanta. Your wife made a scene because she saw something she's been ignoring. The question is what you are going to do about it. I joined her at the glass. What exactly are you proposing? That you stop settling for being treated like a liability, she said, turning back to me, and start exploring what it feels like to be seen as an asset. I'm not asking for a decision right now. I am asking you to have dinner with me tonight and discuss possibilities, professional and personal. The weight of the moment settled in the quiet between us. It was not just about attraction or opportunity. It was about choosing between the comfort of being disregarded and the risk of being valued. Dinner sounds perfect, I said. She smiled, and I felt something open in my chest that had been closed for a long time. 8 o'clock, she said. I will text the address. As I left, I realized I was not simply considering a contract. I was considering a different life, one in which I did not have to fight to be visible in my own marriage. Dinner was everything my marriage had not been in years. Unforced conversation, real laughter, a sense of being recognized rather than managed. By 10 o'clock, we were walking through the hotel lobby where the party had begun the night before. This time, I was not an accessory. I was a man a brilliant black woman had chosen to spend her evening with. Your wife called the office 6 times today, Ms. Whitaker said as we reached the elevator. She is concerned about our meeting. I'm sure she is, I said. Are you going home tonight? She asked, not pushing, simply naming the question. The elevator doors opened. She stepped out and turned back to me in the hall. The choice is yours, she said. I thought about the way she had listened to me across a conference table, about the way Candace had treated me like an obligation. I thought about the way respect feels when it is present, and the way absence hollows you out. I have made my choice, I said, stepping out of the elevator with her. The door slid closed behind us. The next morning, I returned home to find Candace waiting on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Where were you? She asked, though her eyes suggested she already knew. Making a decision about my future, I said. With her. With someone who appreciates what she has, I said. She started crying. For years those tears had hooked me. This time they felt like tools. We can fix this, she said. I will change. I will do whatever it takes. It is too late, I said. You had years to decide how to treat this marriage. You chose to be embarrassed by me. I was never embarrassed, she said. Stop, I said. We both know that is not true. I pulled out a set of divorce papers I had drawn up months earlier and never served. I set them on the coffee table. I am done accepting less than I deserve. You cannot be serious, she said. You are throwing away 8 years for a workplace fling. I'm not throwing anything away, I said. You did that when you decided I was a liability to your image. I stood and headed upstairs to pack a bag. She followed, pleading, bargaining, promising. I kept moving. 3 months later, I was running the efficiency engagement for Ms. Whitaker's regional office, making more money than I had ever earned. The divorce was final. Candace, after a rough performance review, had been transferred to a smaller branch. We did not speak. I was dating a woman who introduced me to people like I was her greatest advantage, not a burden she had to explain away. On a Thursday night, my phone buzzed with a message from Candace. Can we talk about us? I watched the notification disappear and let it vanish. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. I have learned that respect is not an accessory you bring out of parties. It is the ground you stand on or the floor that gives way. I chose the ground and never looked back. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.